Take two. Let's see if I can remember my lines. I don't have lines. I just have thoughts, and they're very random. And I think I remember now what I wanted to say, and I kept on getting screwed up. So this is take two. I bought this pen at the Philadelphia Pen Show a month and a half ago, and I bought it not because it was fancy and in gold filigree, which I normally don't like. I like silver. I but it was otherwise nice. But I loved the engraving on it. R.B. McCoy, 1925, OES officers, whatever the OES is. R.B. McCoy in 1925 was among its members, I presume. I'm just trying to figure out what OES could stand for. Come up with something fun, you people, in your comments. Fun is more interesting to me than accurate. If you know what OES is, fine. If you don't, make up something really, really cool. Anyway, it had the wrong nib in it. It had a Parker nib, and I yanked it out and sat here looking for a Waterman nib to go in it. And the first Waterman nib I put in it was very, very flexible, and but it was a nib that belonged in a later pen. I think this was the nib. It probably doesn't belong in this pen either. It has a round breather hole rather than a heart-shaped one. But even so, it just didn't feel right. And this is where my subjectivity in matching a nib style with the kind of pen it is, long, fat, short, filigree, or plain black, how is that going to determine how I write? Now, let's pretend both of these pens were fitted with the exact same nib. Would I write differently because I'm using a swanky pen, or using a hard rubber pen with so many teeth marks on it only a dentist could appreciate it? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the term for, it's not cannibal, ebonite avore, someone who likes to chew on hard rubber. But this is very plain. It's about as plain as you can get, and this is pretty fancy. Not the fanciest, but up there. And when I'm writing with this pen, I feel I should be inviting people to a candlelight soiree, candlelight dinner with Emmett and Liz and the vicar. But of course Rose will show up and ruin it for dear Hyacinth. Where this is what Hyacinth's husband, Richard uses to plan the murder of his wife. 1. Buy gun. 2. Load gun. 3. Aim gun. 4. Fire. Repeat. Repeat, repeat, repeat. How many bullets does a gun have? 1, 2, 3, 4. That should do it. Knowing Hyacinth, though, she'd need about 50 to put her down. Anyway, does this fancy pen want me to write fancy things? But I did notice, as you know, I also think about balance. And this one is so light in one's hand, it really just floats. And this one is heavy, and it does not float. It wants to sink. This is like, you know, the Graf Zeppelin when it was landing in Lakehurst, New Jersey. Not the Hindenburg, we're not going to go there, but the Graf Zeppelin, and it's, you know, it has zero weight. It's not going up, it's just hanging there. And I know it's difficult to move something that has mass, even though it doesn't have weight, but this one feels like it's filled with helium to me. This feels like it's filled not with lead necessarily, but with something heavy. So this is pushing down on me, pushing down on the hand, pushing down on the nib. And I preferred the weight of the pen sort of demanded to me in my little brain. It demanded that it have a nib that is broader than the very flexible fine nib that could fit in this pen. This nib that I put in it isn't quite right mentally for me, but it's okay, sort of. It's really weird. I'm sorry for changing my mind in the middle of my sentence, but there's also something about this pen that feels a little tiny bit unsteady, and it shouldn't, but the cap is quite heavy, so there's this sort of weird feel that this might happen, that it might fall back on its little fulcrum. There's just something, I don't know, does this make any sense to me? Am I making any sense to me? I know that you people think I've gone off the deep end, but usually there's some little neuron that's holding everything together in my head, and I'm not sure whether it is in this case. This is just a very weird feeling. I'll set it down, and I'll go over to this one. This pen, the one that Richard is using to plan Hyacinth's murder, feels effortless in a way to use, because it's so light in my hand. This one is very heavy. I mean, it's noticeably heavy. This is lighter than almost any modern fountain pen. Modern fountain pens are really heavy in my hands, I find. This is weird. The balance in this pen is weird on me, weirding me out. And let's see what happens if I do this. This is better. I'm not having that weird feeling with this. But I am when it's bound. Normally I don't have any problem with posting a pen, but this one, just because it's heavier now toward the stern, it's causing me to have nightmares. I'm just going to set this right down. And I'm going to set this right down. Richard, go buy the gun. And I'm going to talk about these. Death and taxes. I'm not going to talk about death. I already did. Hyacinth is going to die. I'll talk about these two pens. These two pens are fitted both. Each of them, both of them, have accountant nibs. And the one that I will be using for red ink is in the red pen. Why does this want to do this? This one wants to slide out of the thing on its own accord. Sorry, let me put this back. It really, funny. Okay, this one I could use with red ink. This is with black ink, and in my case, I'm always I'm not making any money. I should all of my ledgers should be full of red ink because it doesn't stay with me long, this money stuff. Anyway, accountant nibs, I recently, well, a couple of years now, many years, I have been enjoying the limited range that they have. They only go to, from 0 to 10, they might go to 1. If you really want them to, they might go to 1. But their 0, their fine line, and the range from fine to as broad as they can get is really a pleasant experience. And it's hard to explain why it's as pleasurable as it is, because it's whispering throughout its life. It will never shout. It will only whisper. And because it's whispering, maybe you want to hear it more than if it was shouting. This one, as always, pens, no two nibs are going to be alike, and no two accountant nibs are going to be alike either, especially when you don't have ink in it. Come on, dip down there. Thank you. This one seems, I don't think it's just the color of the ink, but this one seems to be thicker than this one. But they're quite fun. Try out, if you have an accountant nib, reacquaint yourself with it during tax season, and try them out. These were designed, of course, to fill in all of your millions in the little tiny columns that you had, putting all those numbers in, and they work for that. There's a little tiny bit of flexibility to them for I don't know what reason. Maybe it was just a mistake. I honestly don't know why this wants to creep out. It's like it slowly moves out. Maybe the sack is too long and the sack is pushing it out. But it's really quite interesting. For shits and giggles, I put one of them in this pen just for a minute, and it didn't seem right. This is not a pen for an accountant. This is a pen for someone fancy. Someone who's fancier than they really are. They like to show off their money, their china, their silverware was bought. It wasn't inherited. They bought their silver. That's just what gold seems to me. It's garish and showy, where silver. Come on, silver. Maybe because silver can tarnish and turn sort of gray with just a little tiny speck of shininess. Maybe that's what I like. And if you looked at me or my hands covered in ink and my house covered in dust and debris, you'd understand why tarnish is something I feel comfortable with, where shiny gold, I don't. This is an okay nib for this. It still wants to be a little bit louder than this one is. So what's in this one? No, these are both kind of similar. This has the wrong nib too, come to think of it. This has a more modern nib. Oh dear. Well, I don't have anything to say. As I didn't have anything to say 15 minutes and 18 seconds ago either. But you've been listening to me, so I'm sorry. What could you have done in those 15 minutes and 18 seconds instead of listening to me? On another note, I know you probably thought this was going to be a 51 when you saw the cap, but it's a Parker VS, and it has a plastic feed. I just recently talked about feeds on modern pens, and someone had mentioned in my comments, about plastic feeds, and I have found that plastic feeds work less good than hard rubber feeds. These pens were fitted with clear, not only plastic, but they were clear plastic feeds. For some reason, they thought that was a cool thing. I'll show you. Well, you know what clear looks like, but see, it's clear. And I just don't find clear plastic, or any kind of plastic, to work as well as hard rubber. And someone else that has done blind studies and figured that out can maybe explain why it is. I don't know why it is, but I have found that it is. I was going to show you, this pen was made both with plastic and hard rubber feeds, and I was going to put them side by side, and I couldn't find one that had a hard rubber feed, so I wasn't able to do it. I know I've got one kicking around here somewhere, but who knows where. This has another nib that's very much like an accountant nib. It should say accountant on it, but it doesn't. 17 minutes and 42 seconds. I guess I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.